So welcome to Animalistic. Animalistic is a mentalism properties effect where you can actually define a doll of animal what the spectre was thinking of. So the premise of how this effect will look exactly kind of like a properties effect, but there are many parts in this effect that requires you to actually use a guessing plot, which means you're trying to guess certain type of words that this animal may have. It's not a big negative, but most of the people will not even catch that. So what you guys are going to be receiving for this effect is that you guys are going to be receiving the PDF file that describes the whole concept of the anagram. So once you guys are going to receive the PDF, there's going to be a bold letter which mentions cat anagram, and that's going to be like the anagram of the overall effect. And also there's going to be a breakdown of the cat anagram, same as the dog, that briefly describes the overall process that what you should do to be able to know what the doll of animal that the spectre will be thinking of. So based on how I tried to invent this effect back in the days, I was trying to read people's minds with using an impression pad back in the day. But most of the cases, I always tend to forget to bring my own gimmicks. So I wanted something that it will be quick, easy, and totally propless if I need to able to read someone's mind with any kind of pattern. So I invented this effect especially for this because it's quite unbelievable of how many specters will be thinking of an animal. So in that case, if a spectre will be thinking of an animal, most cases they will be thinking of the simplest animal in the world. But the best part with animalistic is that based on how the anagram and also how the effect works, there's so many possibilities that the spectre can actually be thinking of an animal. So they could be even thinking of a jungle animal, a pet animal, or a forest or a war animal. So the best part is that they can actually think of any type of animal. Depends on how the anagram works. So basically what you guys are going to be receiving is going to be PDF, and also the overall PDF may look intensive. It might be looking a whole lot of stuff, but do not worry, I'm going to try to break this down in how the overall process of each step will look like. So I'm going to briefly demonstrate you several performances of how this effect will look like. So you know that many people owns a dog and a cat?
Yeah.
Let's start with the cat first.
Okay.
I want you to imagine taking out one letter from that word in your brain. You got one?
Got it.
Got it? Okay, try to think of an animal that starts with that letter.
Okay.
You got one? Okay. Think of the amount of letters that this has. How many does this animal has? Like, how many letters does this word has?
Oh, 6.
6? Oof, okay, it's quite difficult. Place your hand like this. Okay, I want you to think over and over again of your animal over and over again. Like E of the last letter. E, no? Okay, does it have an E on this animal?
Yes.
Yes. Put your hand down. Thinking it over and over again. You were thinking of a turkey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so many people owns a cat and a dog. So imagine we take the word dog, and I want you to take one letter out of that word. You got one?
Yep.
Okay, and I want you to think of an animal that starts with that letter.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Think the amount of letters that this word has over and over again.
Yep.
Does it has 3 letters?
Yep.
Yes?
Yes.
Give me your hand like this. I want you to think of your animal over and over again. Place it down. You were thinking of an owl?
Yep.
Okay. So you know that many people owns a cat and a dog. We're going to be using the cat right now. And I want you in your brain to take one letter out of that word. Okay, you got one? And I want you to think of the first animal that starts with that letter in your brain. You got one? Okay, so this time don't say yes or no. Just you're going to answer it all in your head, okay? Okay, give me your hand like this. I want you to think of the amount of letters that this word has over and over again. 44334. Repeat the number over and over again. Okay. It's quite a different type of animal. It's kind of look more like a bird-like. Tell me yes or no, you were thinking of a crow? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so you know that people owns a dog and a cat?
Yeah.
So right now we're going to be thinking of a cat right now.
Oh, okay.
And in your brain, I want you to take out one letter out of that word. You got one? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I want you to think of the animal that starts with that letter in your brain right away.
Okay.
Got one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me see. Let me just write down something here. Okay. Does this animal has about 10 letters?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, let me just correct this. Okay. In your brain right now, you were thinking of any type of animal. What was the type of animal you were thinking of?
A chimpanzee.
So this is pretty much a chimpanzee right here.
Okay.
So once you guys seen some of the performances of how this effect will look like, I've been demonstrating on each performance the basic of the effect and also the advanced level of the effect. But take note that many of these performances may look simple of how you view it, but the overall secret of this effect will take a lot of time to practice. So it's not an easy effect to learn, but it will give you a motivation view of how this overall performance will look like. So it may look simple, but the whole behind the scenes point of this effect, it's quite large. So I'm gonna briefly explain of how the PDF is meant to be described. So this is not the actual PDF. This is just like a run through of how you guys actually have it into your set. So the first part you guys gonna be seeing is the cat anagram. So the cat anagram, the first part is just the basic of how it looks like. So it's just like an example for you to be able to practice. And also there's also something called the cat breakdown anagram, which is breaking down each point. What does the actual anagram means? So there's like those letters or notes that I actually explain on the PDF that breaks down on the things that you should say and should you do for this anagram. So the process of this anagram is quite it may look intensive, but it's quite easy to figure out what you're actually doing. So I'm actually gonna break this down in several mini steps of what you should do to be able to know what animal you may be thinking of. So in that case, we're gonna start focusing more on the cat and the dog, but basically both of them work the same. But I'm gonna try to go over more on the cat anagram first. So based on the cat anagram, there's so many parts which has if you guys can do, you can print out the PDF. It's just, I think it's just 2 pages or 3 pages. You can print it out and try to go over what I'm going to be explaining then. So it will be better if you actually print out the PDF in color, because there's some parts of that PDF that has color, and those color parts meant they are important for this effect. So to able to clarify what you should do, those the blue and the red colors that are going to be in the PDF are very important, because it briefly talks about a specific point of the anagram. So first of all, we're going to go over on the cat anagram first, and then later I'm going to be explaining more deeply or more in depth of how this anagram will look like. So once you guys have the PDF in print with color, I'm going to briefly explain of how the cat anagram works. So based on how you guys going to view it, there's a column which mentions about the letters with the numbers in it, which is letters of 3, letters of 4, letters of 5, letters of 6, letters of 7, letters of 9, and letters of 10. So in that part, I'm going to briefly explain a different type of different point of the video, of how that part will look like. And also there's several parts which are in color, which are in red and blue, which mentions more about several letters that you should able to know what animal they're gonna be thinking of. And also the blue part, and there's also some black bold letters that briefly explains what it really is. So for in this part, we're going to be briefly explain more in depth of the cat anagram, but later then I'm going to be explaining about the dog anagram. So in this part, we're going to be explaining more about the cat anagram. So we're going to first start explaining about the letters with the numbers in it, which is letter 3, letter 4, letter 5, letter 6, etc. So I'm going to briefly explain what really is. So for now, we're going to be explaining of the letters with the numbers in it. So for this part on your PDF, each of those columns, which the letters with the numbers with letter 3, letter 4, letter 5, and etc., that actually means the amount of letters that the animal has. So once you're going to be seeing that on your PDF, what I briefly means, what really means is that once you see on the cat anagram, you see that the word cow, or the animal cow, crow, camel, tiger, etc. You notice that many of those animals have, once you spell out, there are many different kinds of amount of letters that they have. So in that case, cow has 3 letters, which means that there are about 3 letters in that animal. If you see crow, you see that there's about 4 once you actually visualize it as a word, and etc. You can keep on, etc. So you notice that the last animal is going to be chimpanzee, which has 10 letters on it. So you can actually briefly look through it to know that many of the animals, which is coyote, a turtle, cougar, a chicken, a turkey, they have their own unique amount of letters in it. So that's one important part of the secret. So that's going to be for the letters. So to able to know what the spectator will be thinking of what animal, to briefly start with this effect, you have to start it with a different type of way. I'm going to briefly explain of how you can get cat and dog for the spectator, because that's going to be the first part of this effect. But I'm going to be going over more in depth of how can you able to force cat and dog with using bullets or any type of way you could use. So to able to start with, you have to, the reason why I wrote the word cat in it is that this is the basic part what you should do. So the cat has 3 letters in it. It's not that quite hard, but each of those letters represent an animal. So you notice that the cat starts with the letter C, and so basically this is how it looks. So imagine you just gave out the word cat to the spectator, and you tell them to, if in fact I want you to think of one of those letters from that animal. So they could be thinking of the letter C, A, or T. And then later I'm going to briefly explain that if you want, try to take any type of letter you want to, and starting with that letter, I want you to think of an animal that starts with that letter. So it could be either C, A, or T. So in that case, if I was a spectator, I would just pick the word, the letter T, and I need to think of an animal that starts with that letter. So the only possible animals that starts with that letter could be either a tiger, a turtle, or a turkey, or etc. But those are the most common animals that they could be thinking of. If they were thinking of if they took out the letter A, they had to think of an animal that starts with that letter A. So in that case, it could be an alligator. So pretty much that's the only animal that they can actually think of. In most cases, they could be thinking of an ant, but technically it's more like an insect animal. But if you want to start with this effect, try to explain that they should be thinking of an animal but not an insect, which brings an excuse to take away ant from the equation. So if they were thinking of the letter C, they're going to be thinking either a cow, a crow, a camel, a cougar, a coyote, a cheetah, or chimpanzee, or a chipmunk, etc. So with the letter C, there's so many animals that starts with that letter. But that's how the process of why the cat letter is it. So to know how to start with this effect, start like this. You can actually use any type of script you want to, but most cases I would just use this. So in that case, if you were the spectator, this is how I'm gonna say it. Like, imagine the first animal I'm gonna be thinking of will be a cat, and it's quite obvious because not many people owns a cat. I do not own a cat by myself, but imagine, take the word cat, and in your own hand, in your own brain, I want you to visualize only one letter from that word, and with that letter, I want you to think of an animal that starts with that letter. So, in that case, they're not going to tell you what letter they're going to be thinking of, because that's going to be their job to do. But the best part is that once they take any type of letter, which could be C, A, T, they could be thinking of C. If they take out the word letter C, they could be thinking of a cow, a crow, a coyote, or if it was T, you could be thinking of a tiger or a turtle, or A, they could be thinking either an alligator. So those are like the possible animals they're going to be thinking of, but not many people will be thinking of the more in-depth animals like chimpanzee or chipmunk or etc. Like, many people tend to think of the most basic animals, what they on the first point they're going to be thinking of. So once they've done that, once they already took out a letter from it and think of an animal that starts with that letter, now it's going to be your job for you to able to know how many letters that animal that they're going to be thinking of has. So in that case, we're going to start with the basic. So imagine they took out the word, the letter C, and the first animal that they come out with their head is going to be cow. So they're going to be thinking of cow. So once you learn or study the whole process of the anagram, I will briefly explain more in depth of the tiny details you should know once they were thinking of multiple animals if they want to. Right? Imagine they were thinking of the word cow. So to start with, you can actually try to guess the amount of letters that this animal has. In most cases, you can actually guess it if you want to. Like, most people tend to think of the most basic animals, like cow, a crow, a tiger, or etc. But many people don't tend to think of the most largest animal with the word in it. So the basic of how I actually to define how many letters this animal has is quite easy. I can actually just tell them to, like, imagine thinking of your animal, and by this I'm gonna be guessing the amount of letters it has. So in this instance, you can actually guess it with whatever number you want to. Like, imagine I want you to think of this animal with the amount of letters in it. Oh wait, there's 5 in it, right? And if they react that there are 5 letters in this animal, then that you just pretty much take a hit in it. But in most cases, it's not going to be looking like that way. So I think the most easiest for you is to able to tell them exactly how many letters this animal has. And most vectors will not hesitate with this, because there's so many animals that has this exact same amount of letters it has. So I just tell them this, like, in fact, how many letters does this animal has? And they're going to briefly tell me 3, 4, 5, or etc. Most cases, spectators may not think over or going over because about this type of question, because you pretty much didn't reveal more in depth about this animal. So in that case, if they were thinking cow, and I explain, I just tell them this, like, how many letters does this animal has? And by a quick conversation, if you're doing this like a simple conversation, they're gonna just tell you that there are about 3 letters in this animal. And to be honest, is that there's several animals that starts with 3 letters. It could be either a cat, a dog, a cow, or etc. But not many people will have an idea of what's going on because you didn't briefly explain more in depth about this animal. You just briefly explain how many letters this animal has. So, in that case, if they gave you a number, it could be either a number between 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 10. If they give you 6, for example, you notice that in the letter 6 that there's a turkey, a cougar, a coyote, and a turtle. So that's there's several parts in that part where it has red letters and also some bolded black letters that briefly explains what is it. I'll briefly explain the more hidden details of how you can actually get to that animal. But in an instance, to able to get to the number of how many letters does this animal has, you can actually just briefly guess it or briefly give him the number to you. There's many ways you can actually do this. If you have multiple spectators around you, or if they have their friends with you, you can actually have the spectator who's thinking of an animal next to you. And the best part is that you can actually tell their friends to able to guess how many letters does this animal that your friend is thinking of. So if imagine we have 3 spectators, but none of them are thinking of an animal, but the only 4th spectator is thinking of an animal. So you can actually just tell their friends to able to guess the amount of letters that their friend's animal has. So you can just go for the 1st spectator and tell them like, all right, try to briefly guess the amount of letters that your friend was thinking of. And if they say 3, and if the spectator who was thinking of the animal reacts, then you got a hit right there. If they didn't aim to that number, you can just explain that that's a good reason of how mentalism and mind reading really works. It's not that quite simple to do, but imagine to this next spectator, I want you to guess the amount of letters that their animal has. And if they briefly say 4, and if they guess it right, they will react. If they guess it wrong, that's a good excuse to keep on going to the next spectator, because you're trying to not convince them that that mind reading is easy. The purpose of mind reading is quite difficult to do because not many people do it. So this is quite a good briefly example of how mind reading will look like, because it's not really more about getting 100% answers to able to know what the spectator will be thinking of. Mind reading is more about taking risk and actually guessing what they're actually doing, because a mind reader will not always going to get stuff 100%. A mind reader is more towards getting those hidden details and trying his own or her best to know what the spectator is thinking of. So that's a good way you can actually get the amount of letters that the spectator will be thinking of. So that's one good part. I mostly use this one because it's a good excuse to explain how mind reading really is in the point of view of the spectator. So the first part is that you can actually, the first part for the letters you're able to get it, you can briefly guess the amount of letters that the animal has, or you can actually just give you how many there are. They will just give you their answer back, or you can actually use multiple spectators to able to get to the number that we're thinking of. So that's one way to able to get the amount of letters that the spectator might be thinking of. So right now we're going to be explaining more in depth about the repeat principle, about the whole concept of how this anagram will look like. So it's not a quite hard principle, but we're going to be briefly explaining about the repeat principle of how the whole process will look like. So welcome to the repeat principle. So basically, this principle is quite one of the most basic parts for mentalism, or in many properties effects, if you learn some in the magic community. The repeat principle is quite like a concept where you can repeat something over and over again until you get a certain type of reaction of the spectator. So here's a brief example of how it looks like. This is not related to the anagram, but this is like a brief example. Imagine they're thinking of either heads or tails. And imagine you tell the spectator to think of a coin that's tossed in the air and grab the coin and think of either if you grab it from the heads or tails. And your job is to able to try to guess whether they pick heads or tails. So the repeat principle is like this. Grab the coin, what's tossed, you grab it. I want you to think either a heads or tails in your head. I want you to think of it over in your head, like tails, 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 and there it is. So what's really going on here is that you're using the repeat principle over, like imagine tails, 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 and once you see a little bit of face reaction of the spectator, that they smile or reacted, then you actually nail the actual coin toss. So that's how this repeat principle works, because it's using a concept that you can actually use in many type of mentalism properties effects that you own, like Peter Turner's Isabella Star 3. If you guys own that, go get it. It's quite amazing for it. Or Fraser Parker's projects. I'm not sure which ones he uses this principle, but it's quite an amazing principle to add on to any type of properties, mentalism effects, or magic effects if you need to. So once you see your PDF on the cat anagram, you notice that there are going to be black bolder words, which are the coyote and the turtle. And you notice that there are going to be red E's at the end of those animals. So imagine you have this situation where the spectator will be thinking of a 6-letter word. So they could be thinking either a turkey, a cougar, a coyote, or a turtle. So once you know more in depth about how many letters this animal has, and they give you the answer. So in that case, they give me there are about 6 letters in this animal. You notice that there are about 4 possible animals that they're going to be thinking of. So don't get too hesitant about how you can actually name to the animal. I'm going to briefly break down every single step of how this animal will look. So you notice that there are turkey, cougar, coyote, and a turtle. And you notice that coyote and turtle are bold black letters on your PDF. So you notice that those 2 animals, coyote and the turtle, end with a letter E. And this is a great point where you can actually use the repeat principle. So you notice that the red E ending with those animals, it's a good excuse where you actually try to able to divine the animal thought of animal that they were going to be thinking of. So imagine they were thinking of a turtle. You can just start with this. So alright, there's about 6 letters in this animal. I have no clue what is it, but in that, oh wait, I want you to focus on the last letter of that animal. I want you to focus it, and I want you to say that letter over and over again, like E, 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 E. And if they react it, because pretty much turtle ends with an E. So if you see reaction on it, because most of the chances they're going to react, because it's quite like a instant mind rate thingy. They're not going to be expected to react, but it's hard to not react it, if you know what I mean. So if they were thinking of coyote, like I want you to visualize this 6-letter animal. Wait, I want you to visualize the last letter of this animal, like over and over again. I want you to repeat it in your mind, like E, E, E. And if you see any reaction, great. You actually not aim that specific animal, but you aim 2 possible animals that could be a turtle or a coyote. But if you don't see any reaction with the letter E, So the only two possible animals that they're going to be thinking of will be either a turkey or a cougar, like that. But most spectators will tend to react on that part. But if you don't see any reaction, or if you're not too sure about that you actually aim to that specific animal, you can actually just briefly explain this like this. So I want you to visualize your animal in bold letters. I want you to visualize the last letter. I want you to think of it. Oh wait, I want you to think of it over again, over again. Wait, it's an E, right? And they're gonna be able to say yes or no. That's quite easy as it is. You can just briefly reveal what letter really is. But in most cases, I will use the repeat principle because it's quite like a just a simple mind reading technique. It's kind of like more like the X-Men power, if you have some. Like I mean, like it's just similar to it. Like imagine you're just like Professor X and you're trying to read someone's mind. It's quite like a similar aspect to it's kind of like a connection when you make to the spectator. It's quite weird to explain, but it's quite cool. But if you're doing the repeat principle like on any letter, in that case like E, and you see a little bit of reaction, they will tend to react with it because it's like an unbelievable experience that the spectator it's getting. So the only two possible repeat principles that are going to be for the cat anagram will be coyote and turtle. So that's going to be on bold black letters. So it's better to you to study the whole concept of this anagram. So as long as you have the repeat principle on the last letter, which is E, just to break this down of how you guys want to study for it, you can just like do this. Like imagine your animal in the air like this. I want you to visualize the last letter of your animal. I want you to visualize in your mind like E. And if you see any reaction, great, you actually name two possible animals that they can be thinking of, which could be either a coyote or a turtle. If you have no reaction, or if they don't react, then the only two possible animals could be either a turkey or a cougar. So that's how the repeat principle is. So right now I'm going to break down of the one letter principle. It's a very easy principle to do, but there are many possible ways you can actually aim to this principle if you want to, or you just create your own methods or presentation if you want to. So we're going to go over with the one letter principle for this effect. So this is for the one letter principle. So this principle is quite like I'm not sure what it has a name on it, but I've seen this in multiple propless effects, but there was not an actual overall name of how the principle is, but I just call it a one letter principle. So what this principle is to be able to guess only one letter from the animal. Imagine you had cat and dog, for example, and the only one letter that has that's unique to one animal is that cat has an A and dog has no A on it. So this is how an example of how the one letter principle is. So imagine they're thinking of either a dog or a cat, and the only way you can actually use this is just like this. I want you to visualize your animal for me. I want you to able to know the amount of letters in it. Wait, I want you to briefly think of, oh wait, I see a letter on this. Wait, there's an A on this animal, right? And if they react to yes, then they're going to be thinking of a cat. If they react with no, then this could be a dog. So it's quite easy. You can actually use the repeat principle for this one, but it's not necessary for it. You can actually use a guessing of 50-50 chance. So it's quite more like a 50-50 chance, but you're not actually failing with this 50-50 chance, because if they say no to your question, then that question will lead to your other answer. If they say yes, then you just got that right answer right. So to briefly explain how this principle is on the anagram for the cat anagram, you have to first look for the letter 5. So letter 5 will be camel or tiger. And on your PDF, you notice that there's going to be a red eye on the tiger. So once you see on the breakdown of the cat anagram, it briefly mentions that if the specter says yes, that there's an eye on it, then they're going to be thinking of a tiger. If they say no, then it's going to be a camel. So it's quite easy of how it sounds, but you can actually put more in your own presentation of how you want it to be. So imagine they were thinking of a 5-letter animal, either a tiger or a camel, and you notice that there's an eye. Well, you notice that in your anagram there's going to be a red eye on it, so that's how you're supposed to memorize it. So the overall presentation or performance will look like is like this. There's a think of your 5-letter animal for me. I want you to think of it in your brain over and over again. Wait, I want you to visualize the letters for me. Wait, I see that there's an eye on this animal. Am I right? If they say yes, then it's going to be a tiger, and if they say no, it's going to be a camel. That's quite easy as it is. It's not like you're not trying to be more mysterious with this question. You just briefly just ask this question to the specter, and unbelievably you can actually get the answer back, like a yes or no, because they're not the specter is not trying to look for any clues. You're not actually doing any sleight of hand to this. So imagine with the same principle, there are many parts which has the red E on it, or red letter. So in this case, he knows that there's if you guys done the repeat principle for the coyote and the turtle, you can actually do the repeat principle with the E. So once you notice that they were thinking of either a coyote or a turtle, you notice that the only letters that they can be that are unique, briefly unique, is that the coyote has a O and turtle doesn't has an O on it. So you can actually just briefly take the animal or the both animals that they may think of, and you notice that what letter does that animal doesn't has on the next animal. So in that case, if it was a coyote and a turtle, you notice that the letter O doesn't has it on the turtle. So you can actually use the letter O to use the 50-50 chance or the 1-letter principle for the specter. Or you can actually use the letter C or Y or R. You can actually use many letters if you want to, but it doesn't affect the overall effect once you say this question to the specter. Like imagine, I want you to visualize your animal for me. Oh wait, there's an A on this animal, am I right? And they're briefly just gonna say yes. But if they don't respond back, then the most possible ways you can actually do this is to give them the clear explanation that I want you to say yes or no for just one question, and you can say the same question over again. But if most victories do not respond with a verbal response, but most cases they will use a face response, like which is for yes and for no. So for the 1-letter principle, works more on the 5-letter, which is for camel and tiger, and for the 6, it will be either a coyote and the turtle. But once you learn more about the repeat principle, and once you aim the repeat principle and you notice that they're going to be thinking either a coyote or a turtle, then you can just use any type of letter you want to, except for T, because both of them have T on it. You can actually use the letter O. Like imagine your animal on the air right here. Oh wait, there's an O on this animal, right? Am I right? And they're gonna say yes, then they're gonna be thinking of coyote. But if they say no, then it's gonna be a turtle. But in that case, if the repeat principle was negative, then the only 2 possible animals they're going to be thinking of will be a turkey or a cougar. So you notice that on the 6-letter word for turkey, it has a red E. So the red E is more like for the 1-letter principle. If you want to, you can actually use T, U, not U, but R. Wait, you say U, R, K. No, you cannot use U or R. Sorry about that. You can actually use Y or K. because those are unique for the animal turkey. So it's quite to the reason why I use E is because it's quite like the easiest letter to able to visualize. So if they were thinking either a turkey or a cougar, just use like this. So I want you to visualize your animal for me. Oh wait, there's an E on this animal, right? And if they're gonna say yes, then it's gonna be a turkey. If no, it's gonna be a cougar. So this is repeated also for the chicken and the cheetah. So the chicken has an I on it, and cheetah doesn't have it. So basically, if chicken has, no, if I has on the word chicken and cheetah doesn't, you can actually use the one letter principle for this. So I want you to visualize your 7-letter word on it. Oh wait, there's an I on this animal, am I right? And if they say yes, it's going to be a chicken. If they say no, it's going to be a cheetah. So it's quite easy to do. And it's also repeated on the letter 9 for chipmunk and chameleon. So chameleon has an E and chipmunk doesn't have an E. I will briefly explain more about the blue bolded letters on the anagram because it's more like a specific type of animal. So I'm going to briefly explain that later on. But the one letter principle is quite using the 50-50 chance on one single letter. So if cat has an A on it and dog doesn't, then you're going to use the letter A to able to break down using the process of elimination on it. So it's quite like this. So if they're thinking of a 6-letter animal, which could be a camel or a tiger, just like this. I want you to visualize your animal for me. I want you to focus more on the letters for me. Oh wait, there's an I on this animal, am I right? And if they say yes, then it's going to be tiger. If no, it's going to be a camel. So I will briefly explain more about the blue bolded words or letters in it, which briefly explains more about the type of animal they're going to be thinking of. So that will be for it. So welcome to the principle of either a warrior or a predator principle. So it's not really a principle, it's really more about an excuse to know what animal that this picture is thinking of. So if you guys are looking through the cat anagram, you notice that there are going to be blue bolded letters in this. So you notice that there's the only blue bolded letters have alligator or crocodile. So you notice that this animal is a predator. So if you have so basically if you're going through this whole process of the effect, you will try to divine what animal they're going to be thinking of. So imagine they were thinking of a 9-letter word, and in this part of the anagram, if you memorize the anagram that has the number 9 on it, the 9-letter word, it could be either an alligator, a crocodile, a chipmunk, or a chameleon. So the predator or a water animal principle is quite easy. So once we're thinking of a 9-letter animal, the one question I can actually use is that I want you to think of your animal pretty clear for me. Oh wait, I want you to visualize your animal for me. Wait, this is a predator animal, am I right? And if they say yes, then it could be either an alligator or a crocodile. If no, it's going to be either a chipmunk or a chameleon. That's quite easy to do. So if you guys look over on the dog anagram, which is here, you notice that the 7-letter word, basically the dog anagram works exactly quite similar to the cat anagram, so you're not pretty much missing out. But you notice that the 7-letter word for the dog anagram has dolphin, octopus, gazelle, giraffe, gorilla, ostrich, or possum. So you notice that the 7-letter word has a water animal. So the dolphin and octopus is a water animal. So if you go over with the same with the letter principle, with how many letters does this animal has, and if they tell you that there are about 7 letters, they could be either thinking of an octopus or a dolphin or a giraffe or etc. But this one question actually break down of how limited, or it will break down several animals and they will just take away some animals for you, which is one question like, oh wait, I want you to visualize your animal for me. Oh wait, this is a water animal, am I right? an animal that lives in the ocean. And if they say yes, then it could be either a dolphin or an octopus. If no, then they're going to be thinking of other animals. So it's quite easy to do. So going back to the cat anagram. So if they were thinking of a 9-letter word, it could be either an alligator, a crocodile, a chipmunk, or a chameleon. And if you mention this one question, oh wait, this is a predator animal, am I right? Just wait for the yes or no. If yes, then it's going to be an alligator or a crocodile. If no, it's going to be a chipmunk or a chameleon. It's quite easy. The reason why alligator and crocodile don't have one letter principle on it is because both animals are quite exactly the same. They all have their differences, but in most cases, you can just actually review it like this, like, oh wait, this is a predator animal, am I right? Oh wait, this is like a crocodile alligator type thing, am I right? And if they react it, then you aim a hit. Because pretty much crocodile and alligator are quite similar. They have different aspects if you learn more towards it, but in most cases people will not even see the difference. If you mention a type of alligator crocodile creature, they will just react it because you can actually just briefly expose to those two words to them. So the water animal and predator are an excuse to break down of what two possible animals they're going to be thinking of. So it's quite more like a 50-50 chance, so it's more like a one-letter principle, but this is a great excuse to able to know the connection between you and the spectator to know what animal they're going to be thinking of. So in that case, I'm going to be briefly explain more in depth about the dog anagram. It works exactly the same thing as the cat anagram, but once you see the PDF, it may look intensive, I know that, but try to learn step by step of each part of this anagram. So that's it. So we're going to briefly talk about the dog anagram. So I'll briefly explain more about the dog anagram. And as I mentioned before, is that this works quite exactly the same thing as the cat anagram. So on your PDF, go through the dog anagram, which is the simple one, not the breakdown. So you notice that the dog anagram works exactly the same thing as the cat. You notice that there are going to be amount of letters, and also there are several parts that mentions the one-letter principle. It will not mention it, but it's quite noticeable if you study it more in depth. So you notice that the 3-letter word with dog, it works the same thing. Is that imagine if they're thinking, not thinking, but you explained that you were thinking of the animal dog. Try to take one letter out of that animal and think of a animal that starts with that letter. So if they were thinking of the letter D in their head, they can be thinking either a deer or a duck or a donkey or etc. If they're thinking of the letter O, it could be an octopus, an owl, or etc. If it was a G, then it could be either a gopher, a goat, or a giraffe, or etc. So it's quite the same thing as for cat, but this is only for the dog part. So you notice that the 3-letter word will be an owl, the 4th-letter word will be a deer, a goat, and a duck, the 5 will be a goose, a gecko, the 6 will be a donkey or a gopher, and the 7 has a lot of animals on it. It has a dolphin, octopus, a gazelle, a giraffe, a possum, an ostrich, and a gorilla, and the 9-letter word will be a Dalmatian. So that's how the dog anagram will look like, but I want to briefly explain more in depth about the 5-letter word, which is the goose and the gecko, because this is using a it's not a principle, but it's quite easy question, easy question for the spectator. So if they were thinking of a 5-letter word, which is a goose and a gecko, you notice that there are red letters, which is double O in it for the goose. This is quite an easy question. You can actually just for this part, you can actually just tell them that I want you to visualize your animal for me. And oh wait, are there in this animal, are there 2 letters that are the same? Am I right? And if they say no, then it's gonna be a gecko. If they say yes, then it could be a goose, because goose have double O. But if that's your option, if you want to use it, I mostly use it. But if you don't want to use that principle, you can actually use the one letter principle with the letter S for goose. So imagine I want you to visualize your 5-letter word. Oh wait, is there an S? Am I right on? Oh wait, yes. And if they say yes, then it's gonna be a goose. If they say no, it's gonna be a gecko. So that's one thing if you guys want to use. If you see double O in it, you can just explain that, oh wait, there are 2 letters the same, am I right? And for goose, it's quite noticeable. If they were thinking of goose, you notice that in their head, they're going to be thinking that, oh, there's double O, so that's the question that he means, so he's going to say yes. If no, it's going to be a gecko. So it's quite easy. If you guys want to use the 1-letter principle on those 2 animals, you can use it. It's your freedom to use it. So I will briefly explain more in depth about the 1-letter principle for the 4th-letter word with the deer, goat, and duck. So in this process, we're using the 1-letter principle at least 2 times. We can actually use multiple outs if you want to use this, but I mostly use the 1-letter principle with this one. So imagine they were thinking of a 4th-letter word with deer, goat, or a duck. So in most cases, once you see this anagram, you notice that the letters are in red or can be E or an O. So this may take time if you want to memorize this, but if you don't want to memorize this anagram, there's a different part where I'm going to explain of how you can actually use the anagram in several parts of how you want to perform this effect. So to start with, you can actually say, I want you to visualize your 4th-letter word, and oh wait, there's an E, am I right? And if they say no, it could be a deer, but not a goat or a duck. But if they say no, then the possible animals I'm going to be thinking of could be either a goat or a duck. But once you finish with that same question, you're going to do the same question again, but with the letter O. So if they said no for E, go with the O. So, oh wait, not E, there's an O, am I right? And if they say no for O, it's going to be a duck. If they say yes, it's going to be a goat. So it's quite easy. You're just using the 1-letter principle 2 times. But in most cases, people will not actually expose of how you actually did it, because there are only 2 letters, and those 2 possible letters could be in many different type of animals. So that's one thing. So the 1-letter principle is repeated on the letter 6, which is donkey and gopher, and Dalmatian doesn't have any one-way letter principle, so it's just a standalone animal. So I'm going to briefly explain more in depth of the 7th letter because it has a lot going on. So the 7 letters has both the water animal, the repeat principle, which is the EEE, and also using 2 times of the 1-letter principle. So it's a combination of a lot of stuff. So this part is quite difficult to memorize, but if you guys want to use several methods of how to use this, you can use that. But in most cases, I will use the cat anagram because it's much more easier. The dog anagram, I mostly use it more in the bullets. I will later briefly explain of how I use bullets to be able to know the animal they're going to be thinking of. So for the 7th letter, you notice that there is an animal, water animals, a repeat principle, and 2 1-letter principles. So you notice that I actually explain more about the water and predators and water animals. So that's how I start with this 7-letter word for dog. So I start with this. I will always start with this type of order because that's how I mostly perform it. But if you guys want to, you can actually just pretty much move or mess around with the effect of the anagram, but I mostly use this because of how clearly the effect is. So this is how a basic example how it works. So I want you to visualize your 7-letter word. Oh wait, this is an animal, a word animal, am I right? No? Okay, I want you to visualize your animal for me. I want you to visualize the last letter on your animal, like E. Oh wait, there's an I on this letter, am I right? Oh wait, there's an A on this. And pretty much what I did there is the combination of a lot of principles. But in most cases, you will actually get a yes response before than that. So if you actually guess the word animal right, then the two possible animals you're going to be thinking of is could be either a dolphin or an octopus. And if you guess that right, so you can, once you guess those two word animals right, you can actually use the 1-letter principle, which dolphin has a red eye on it, so you can just use it like, oh wait, there's an eye on this animal, right? Then yes, so it could be a dolphin. If no, it's going to be an octopus. But if they say no, that it's an animal, a word animal, you will go for the repeat principle for the gazelle and the giraffe, because both of those two animals end with the letter E. So I actually just use the E principle on that one, because the reason why I'm using that is because you cross out the word animals, and the only animals that are left are using the 1-letter principle 2 times, and also the repeat principle in black bolded letters. So it may seem a lot, but the more you do this, the more you pretty much understand how it works. It will get easier by time. So if they say no for the word animal, then they could be either thinking of a gazelle or a giraffe with the black bolded letters. So the only question you're going to be saying is that I want you to visualize your animal in bolded letters. I want you to memorize or visualize the last letter of the animal, like E. And if you understand more about the repeat principle, if they reacted, then you actually aim to that animal. If they say no, cross out those animals and go over on the last 3, which is can be a gorilla, ostrich, or possum. So it's quite easy. So if you receive a positive response on the repeat principle with the E, then you can be using the 1-letter principle. Quite easy. So you notice that the giraffe has a red eye on it, so you can just use that for the 1-letter principle. Like, oh wait, there's an eye on this animal, right? And if they say yes, it's going to be a giraffe. If no, it's going to be a gazelle. Quite easy. So if you receive a negative response for the repeat principle and also for the word animal, go over for the gorilla, ostrich, and the possum, and you notice that possum just has a red letter on it, but ostrich and gorilla do have. So you can use the excuse to use the 1-letter principle on that situation, like I briefly explained before. So I know it's a lot going on. I know it's pretty much intensive and a lot going on with this anagram, but try to do your best to study this anagram over and over again. So this is not an easy effect to do and to perform on the right way, but there are many parts of this effect that briefly explains of how you can actually get to that animal. So it's not easy, but take your time on studying this anagram over and over again. So for the Dalmatian, it doesn't have anything on it because there's nothing going on. So basically the dog anagram is quite the same thing as for the cat anagram, but it has a lot more animals in it. But for the 7-letter animals, it's like the process, like always remember this process if you're doing the dog anagram with if they were thinking of a 7-letter word, they could be thinking either a word animal, or if not, then go to the repeat principle. If they don't react it, then go to the 1-letter principle 2 times. So the 1-letter principle is quite like this. So imagine they said no for the word animal, and they said no for the repeat principle. So the only three possible animals they're going to be thinking of will be a possum, a gorilla, and an ostrich. So you can just briefly go over, like imagine gorilla has a red letter A. You can just say this, like I want you to visualize your animal for me. Oh wait, there's an A on this animal, am I right? And if they say yes, then it's going to be a gorilla. If no, it's going to be an ostrich or possum. But if they say no for the A, then go over for the red eye. So wait, there's an eye on this animal, am I right? If they say yes, then it's going to be an ostrich. If no, it's going to be a possum. So he knows that the eye does contains with a gorilla, but the reason why I mentioned A on it is because it briefly takes away the whole concept of eye. So it's quite hard to visualize it, but try to follow the key points I'm mentioning because it's going to be making it more easier. So start with the letter A. Wait, like there's letter A on this animal, right? If they say yes, then it's gorilla. If no, then it's going to be an ostrich or a possum. And if they say yes for the with the eye on it, then it will not be a gorilla because, well, a gorilla does has an eye on it, but doesn't. But ostrich doesn't has an A. That's why I mentioned A before than the I one. So it's using the process of elimination in that case. But if you receive both negative responses for the A and the I, then it's going to be a possum. Quite easy. So that will be it for the dog anagram and for both of the cat anagram. Try your best to actually study or go over on the PDF because there's a part where it's just a simple anagram, but the other part is the breakdown. And on the breakdown, it has several notes that I left out that mentions the way of how you had to respond or the action that will happen for this effect. So for now, I'm gonna try to go over about a basic rundown of how this effect looks like in a real world view. So we're gonna go over with the cat principle and also with the dog principle in the basic, and later on I'm gonna be explaining more about using advanced techniques with this effect. So we're gonna briefly go over a basic example of how the cat anagram will look like in the performance view. So to start with, you can actually use this question. So imagine many people owns a dog and a cat. Am I right? And most people will say yes. Not many people own one, but they do. Mostly about 70% of the world population do own one. So in that case, I want you to, I want you to think of a cat for me. Okay, good. For now, I want you to take one letter from that animal, and I want you to think of an animal that starts with that letter, but do not tell me what letter you took out. So do this all in your head secretly for me. So in this process, they're going to be doing the whole process. So they're going to be thinking of the word cat, and they're going to be taking one letter out of it. So in that case, they're going to be taking out the letter C. So they have the freedom to take out either a C, A, or T. But in that case, they're going to be taking out C. And for instance, they're going to be thinking of an animal that starts with that letter with a C on it. So the possible animals they're going to be thinking of will be either a cow, a crow, a camel, a cougar, or a coyote with the letter C on it. But let's go with the basic one. So imagine they were thinking of a cow. So you have no clue what animal they're going to be thinking of. But using with the principles, you're going to know what animal they're going to be thinking of. So great. So you already have an animal that you were thinking of now? Yep. Okay. I'm having difficulty to read you. How many letters does this animal has? And if they say 3, then you instantly know it's going to be a cow, because it's the only 3-letter word on the whole process of the anagram. If you want to use different parts of how you can actually gain how many letters does this animal has, you can actually use a guessing point, or briefly just give them the response, or using multiple spectators to able to get that number right. So cow has 3 letters on it, so it's quite easy. So let's just try to use 5 letters. So I want you to think of your animal for me. Oh wait, does this animal has 5 letters in? Am I right? And if they say yes, good. If they say no, just given this excuse like, oh, I'm having difficulty to read you. How many letters this animal has? And they're gonna briefly just say it for you. But if they say yes on 5, then the only 2 possible animals that have 5 letters will be a camel or a tiger. Then this is the point we're gonna be using the one letter principle. Like imagine like this. I want you to imagine your animal for me. Oh wait, there's an eye on this animal, am I right? And if they react, then it's gonna be a tiger. If no, then it's gonna be a camel. Quite easy. So we're gonna go over with the 6th letter, which is another possible part. And in this 6th letter, this is using we're using the repeat principle and also some of the 1 letter principles. So it's quite like this. I want you to imagine your animal for me. Oh wait, does this animal have 6 letters? Yep. Oh, great. I want you to imagine your animal for me in bold letters. I want you to imagine the last letter of your animal like E, 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 E. And if they react, then this could be a coyote or a turtle. If no, it's going to be either a turkey or a cougar. Quite easy. I mostly use the repeat principle first to eliminate that aspect first to able to go towards the 1 letter principle. So if you're on the 6th letter word for the cat anagram, use the repeat principle first. And if they respond yes, then it's going to be either a coyote or a turtle. And then you will later use the 1 letter principle. But if they say no for the repeat principle, then go over and then go for the turkey and the cougar and use the 1 letter principle on that one. Quite easy. So for the 7 letter word, it's using just chicken and cheetah, so you can actually use a 1 letter principle. And if you're going over the 9 on the letter 9, then there's alligator, crocodile, a chipmunk, and a chameleon. So for this process, you can actually use this. So imagine you already know that it has 9 letters on it. So you can just use this in question like, I want you to imagine your animal for me. Oh wait, this animal is a predator, am I right? And if they say yes, then it's going to be either alligator or crocodile. If no, it's going to be either a chipmunk or a chameleon. So if they said yes for the predator, you can actually use this script like, oh wait, this is like a alligator, crocodile creature. And if they respond yes, you got it. And if they say no, it could be either a chipmunk or a chameleon. So you can actually use E for this. So I want you to imagine your animal for me. I want you to imagine the amount of letters in this. Wait, there's an E on this animal, am I right? And if they say yes, it's going to be a chameleon. If no, it's going to be a chipmunk. That's how it works. The more you do this, the more easier it's going to get. Even if you're working on the cat anagram or the dog anagram. But the more you do this, it's going to be easy. But also, I'll briefly explain of how you can actually use this anagram in bullets. So if you guys don't want to give the time to memorize this, I will give you an easy way out to be able to do this effect quickly. So in that case, if they were thinking of a 10-letter word, the obvious one is going to be chimpanzee because it's the last animal that starts with that letter, or the amount of letters it has. So that's for the cat anagram. So we're going to go over with the dog. And with the dog anagram, it's quite easy, but it has a lot more animals in it, especially for the 7-letter word. So it's quite like this. So I want you to visualize. Oh wait, I want you to think of a dog for me. It's just a dog, just a word dog for me. And in that case, let's make this a little bit more harder for us. I want you to take 1 letter out from that animal, and I want you to think of an animal that starts with that letter. And in that case, they're going to take the letter O, and the animal they're going to be thinking of will be an ostrich. So for this part, they already done that for you because it's quite easy. So the only job you have to do is then to know how many letters this animal has. So you could be using a guessing point, or just tell them what it really is, or using multiple specters to get to that number. But in that case, we're going to be using a guessing point. So imagine, like, wait, is there 5 letters on this animal? And if they say no, you can keep on going guessing on it. But if you don't want to do that, you can just tell them like, "Oh, I have difficulty time on reading you." Oh wait, how many letters does your animal has? And that's a good excuse to know that mind reading is quite difficult. It's not easy to replicate on many people. But if you say that question, they're gonna give you the response back. So if they're thinking of the ostrich, it has 7 letters in that word, so it's gonna be 7. So once again, the 7-letter word has a lot going on because it has a word animal, repeat principle, and many 1-letter principles in it. But in that case, they were thinking of the ostrich. You have no clue what is it, but you know that they're going to be thinking of a 7-letter word. So to start with this part, we're going to be starting with the word animals. So I want you to visualize your animal for me. Great. Wait, this is a word animal, and if they say no, then it's going to be you're going to keep on going with the repeat, and also with the 1-letter principle. If they say yes, it's going to be a dolphin or octopus. So they said no for the word animal, so we're going to be doing the repeat principle like this. Like I want you to visualize your animal for me way more clear for me. I want you to think of the last letter. I want you to think of it like E. And if they don't respond with a reaction, then it's not going to be those animals. So it's not going to be either a gazelle or a giraffe. But in most cases, they don't tend to react well. So you can just actually say this question like, "Oh wait, there's an E on this animal at the last part," and if they say yes, then this can be one of those animals. If they say no, keep on going with the principles. So the only last 3 animals that they're going to be thinking of could be either a gorilla, the ostrich, and the possum. So we're going to start like this. So they said no with the word, and they said no with the repeat principle. So the only animals they're going to be thinking of is the gorilla, an ostrich, or a possum. So we're going to start like this. I want you to think of your animal for me. I want you to think of the amount of letters in this animal, and also I want you to think of the letters that it has in this animal. Oh wait, there's an A on this animal, am I right? And if they say yes, then it's going to be a gorilla. But if they say no, it's going to be an ostrich or a possum, and that's quite it. But if they said no for the gorilla, then it's going to be either an ostrich or possum. So we're going to be doing the 1-letter principle again, like this. Oh wait, there's an I on this animal, am I right? And if they said yes, then it's going to be an ostrich. If no, it's going to be a possum. Quite easy. So if they said yes for the I, you actually nail the animal. But in this point, do not try to instantly reveal the animal right away, because there are many ways you can actually reveal this animal instead of saying it like that. If you guys have the chance to go, if you guys know more about the Louis Lavelle 1914's project about revelations, go get that, because it's quite a fantastic project to actually reveal a lot of numbers or animals or etc. So in that case, like, imagine you already knew what the stretcher was thinking of. He will go over more in depth about how to reveal this of thing they were thinking of in a different type of way instead of saying it like that. But it's your freedom to actually reveal these type of animals in many types if you want to. If you're using a sealed envelope, or using it like hypnosis or etc. Or you can actually use any type of way you want to, but you have the complete freedom to reveal the object to the spectator in a different way. So try to like have the freedom to do or expand of how you can reveal this type of stuff, because if you actually reveal it like that, it's cool, it's quite it's great, but it's not unbelievable for the spectator. So try to really convince it, or really try different ways to reveal it, because it's not only just to reveal stuff to the spectator, because that's how mentalism is. Try to create your own presentations to be able to reveal stuff, to do something with that information that you have. So it's your complete freedom to actually take that doll thing and expand it to many type of things. So that's pretty much a basic rundown of how the overall routine is. So this is how in the real world view is. So on the performances, I shown you how it looks like, and I expect you to actually go see those performances again to actually see how the anagram is, and pretty much follow through the PDF of how I actually say those questions in the performances. So this is just one more take of how the process will look like in without explaining, but just showing like that. So it's quite like this. I want you to imagine many people own an animal in their home, and the most cases of these animals will think of a cat or a dog, and not many people will own these animals. But in that case, imagine we own a cat. I want you to think of cat for me, just the word cat. I want you to think of the amount of letters that it has. In that case, let's make this a little bit more difficult. Try to take one letter from this cat, or from the word. Could be either C, A, T, or etc. It doesn't really matter. And I want you to think of an animal that starts with that letter. And in that case, you will start doing the whole process. So there you have the animal doll off. So this is how you can start. So okay, I want you to imagine your animal for me. Oh wait, does this animal has 5 letters on this animal? Yes? Okay, let's try to make this a little bit more different. Okay, I want you to imagine your animal over and over again. Wait, there's an eye on this animal, am I right? Yes? Huh, great. Okay, I want you to extend your hand like this. I want you to imagine an animal like this. And I want you to imagine the animal in front of you. I want you to clearly see the animal in your head over and over again. You were thinking of a tiger, am I right? And they're gonna say yes. So that's how the whole process of this effect is. And it's the same thing as with the cat anagram and the dog anagram. So the only part you have to do is try to practice your best on how you can actually perform this. And I know there's a lot of steps with the anagram, but try to really take your time on each point on each of these principles, because it's quite tedious to actually know these, but the more you do this, it's quite easy. It's kind of like second nature once you perform these, but that's it. So I will briefly explain more about the body read principle. So this is quite like more in advanced level, because not many people tend to do this, but I usually use these for if I want to. If I don't want any response back, I would just use the body read. If you guys want to skip that section, you can skip it, but this is more like an advanced level. Like, I don't expect people doing this, but if you guys are more into the being bold on these type of effects, you could use this principle. So we're gonna go over with the body read. So this is for the body read advanced principle. So in that case, if you guys want to skip this section, you can skip it, but this is only for the people who want to take risk on doing this effect. And the body read is quite difficult because it requires you to really be precise on what you're actually looking for. So you notice that most of these questions that I mentioned for the repeat principle and the animal predator, water animals, and the one letter principles are more towards the yes or no. So in this part, you can actually use this principle that I mostly use most of the time. We're using eyesight. So it's better for people who don't own glasses, because if they're wearing shades or sunglasses, it's quite hard to actually know what they're going to be responding. So they're using their eyesight by using response. So to briefly explain, like imagine we're going to be towards the repeat principle with the EEE, and that part requires to have a reaction without using the yes or no. So if you mention the EEE with the last letter, they will instantly react with a smile or just stay still or pale. But if you have no clue if you actually nail it, you can actually use a yes or no. Like does the last letter will be an E, am I right? And if it's a yes or no, then they're going to be responding. But for the body read, you can actually use this. So to start with, you can actually just use the yes or no on them. So I want you to imagine your animal for me. I want you to think of the last letter. Wait, there's an E on this animal, am I right? And in this part, because during the start of this effect, you have to say that they're not going to say no or yes during the whole process. But in this process, most people tend to look away, which means it's really a no. And if they stay still, well, if they look away from their eyesight, if their eyelids are like over there or looking toward the right, that means they're looking away from the truth, which means it could be either a yes or no. But in most cases, it will be a yes. But if they stay still staring at you like that, and it could be either a yes or no, but in most cases, it will be a no. So, to able to do this, try to practice this. If you try to practice this with your friends, because it's quite like a body read type of effect that requires a lot of time to really be precise of what you really want to see. So in most cases, to be able to start with this effect, to be able to nail with the body read, try to do this in the first place. So you can just come up with just go with someone and tell them like what was the last meal that they eat 2 days ago. And in most cases, people tend to move their eyes somewhere else because that's the right moment that they are thinking. And if they respond right away, then they're just going to be straight ahead like that. So that's one thing you can actually use that to able to know the yes or no, but it's not 100% part because many people tend to think otherwise. But to able to get 100% yes or no, try to use this. I mostly use a not hat like this. Like imagine they were thinking of heads or tails, and they're not going to tell you what is it, but imagine I tell them like, I want you to think you were thinking of heads, am I right? Like this. And if they nod their head a little bit, then you actually know that it's going to be a yes. But if they don't react, then it's going to be a no. So that's one thing I mostly use, but it's not really 100% because there's always fail rates on these type of things. But if you guys want to learn more about body reads, you can actually go with Brandon Queen. He's quite an expert with these type of things because he's using eyesight on guessing people's numbers, pin codes, or etc. But if you guys want more in depth about the body read, I think there are several mentalism books out there that briefly explains more about the personality of the person or facial expressions of the people. And in that case, because not many people will like to use this because it's not 100% workable, it's always going to be like that 50% fail rate. But if you guys want to use this, you can actually use this for it. I mostly do not use this, but it's quite hard because it's quite difficult to know what spectre you're working on. But this is quite easy. So imagine telling to, I want you to think yes, and I want you to repeat over your head without saying it, like this. And if they nod their head a little bit, they are actually thinking of it. But if you tell them like, I want you to think of no, I want you to think of it like over again. And you notice that most of the time they tend to say yes very heavy or very a little bit rapidly with the head. But if they say no, it's much more slower. It's quite hard to see it. But if you try it with multiple people, you'll instantly see a difference with that. So if just in case, tell them to think of yes over in your head like this. And if you say like this, the best part is that they're going to be try to replicate it from you. But if they say, if you say no, like I want you to think of no, what you're actually doing is doing it a little bit slower than last time. And in most cases, people will tend to replicate it like out of nowhere. So it's quite like second nature for them. But once you've done that and you recognize the amount of movements that we're doing with the head, you can start with the effect. So imagine we're doing the one letter principle. You can just say this. I want you, without saying yes or no, I want you to keep it on your head like this. I want you to, I want you to visualize your animal for me. Wait, there's a letter on this animal, am I right? And most cases, without even responding, they tend to answer it more on their head. But many people tend to answer it with their head movements without them noticing. It's quite unbelievable because I tend to use these in multiple people, and the first thing I always mention is always using the head movement. So that's quite one thing you can actually use this. You can actually use the eyesight by looking away. Like if they were thinking of what was the last time you washed your hands, and if they move away, they're thinking of it. But also, if you're doing a yes or no thing, like this question, like imagine say yes or no, but in an instant, but in your head, what was the last time do you ever drop a bowl of spaghetti? And if they stare at you a little bit, then most cases it could be either a no or a yes. But if they look away a little bit, then it could be a yes, because that was pretty much they were thinking of the last time they dropped a bowl of spaghetti, which means it's quite obvious that they actually did it. But if they didn't react, like just pale and still, then it's quite an easy no for it. So this is a different type of question. It's like the same thing as with the what was the biggest spaghetti. Imagine like, well, yes or no, do you ever cheat on a test? And if they stay still on a no, then it could be a no. But in most cases, if you're doing this with teenagers, some people tend to cheat on tests, obviously. So if it's always gonna be a yes, because many people tend to cheat. Not like we all cheat in most cases, but the first thing that you notice from this picture by looking away or staring away, the first thing you notice is that if they stare at you directly, then it's gonna be a yes. But if they look away on the first place when you say this question, if it's a yes, then you know it's gonna be a yes. So it's a quite thing. It mostly works on people, but not most of the time. So that's for the body read. And right now we're going to be going over of how you can actually use bullets for the actual anagram for the cat and dog. So this is a way you can actually not memorize the anagram. If you have difficulty on memorizing it, I will give you a simple way of how you can use bullets on actually doing this. So I'm going to briefly explain of how you can actually use bullets on the anagram on the entire effect. This is only for the people who don't want to actually take the time to memorize this, but it's not a big of a deal. Many people do not have the time to memorize it because they want to do other stuff, or they were trying to memorize on other type of effects. But this is a good excuse to actually have the anagram read you without the spectators ever knowing. I mostly use this if I need to, because in most cases I tend to, there's so many effects I do that requires a lot of memorization, but in many cases it's quite hard to keep that in mind. So to start with, you can actually use any type of billets. You can actually use business card size. It could be any type of billets if you want to, or playing cards if you're taking a risk if you want to. But but the basic thing that you really have to know is that you really have to know the principles about how the anagram works, because the process of, if you're gonna be taking a breaking down of the whole anagram, it's a lot of words just to write with. So to start with, try to take your PDF if you want to, and you see that there's going to be the simple part of the anagram with the cat anagram with no of the break, without the tiny notes I wrote down. The best part you can actually do is that if you have the simple anagram with the cat, with the cow, crow, tiger, etc., with the numbers in it, and without the notes I actually put on, you can actually try to take a pen, not a Sharpie, because it's quite with a Sharpie it's quite, it takes a lot of space with a business card. So if you're using a pencil to be able to write, because you're pretty much writing down the anagram on the piece of paper, pretty much a piece of paper. But if you're taking a pencil, I will not guarantee you use that, because with pencils is that if you're using bullets in many performances, or you place it inside your pocket on many occasions, the pencil lead will just briefly smear on the paper. So you don't want that, because it will be hard for you to able to visualize the anagram. So I mostly use pens or very thin pens, and you can just briefly copy the same thing as on your PDF, or you can actually customize it with your own way of how you can actually visualize the anagram. But to start with, you can actually just take the numbers, write down the numbers, and then later you would just briefly across, you would just write down the word of the animals. And if you want to, you can actually use different type of color pen and briefly mark on the parts that require the repeat principle, the one letter principles, etc. But in most cases, I will not use that, because I actually know of what parts of the anagram requires principles if I need to. But if you want that, you can actually take it. So you can just actually start with the cat anagram on one piece of business card, and the other one could be for the dog. So it's option if you want to use the cat or dog or both of them on two separate pieces of paper, one for the cat and one for the dog. But in most cases, you can actually use the cat principle, because the cat anagram, because it's quite easy. It doesn't require a lot of work than the dog one. So all you have to do with no Sharpie, you can just actually use a pen. You just write down the numbers and write down the names of the animals, and you can briefly make many tiny notes of what parts requires the principles. And once you have that, it's gonna last you forever as long as you take care of it. So imagine your anagram is right here. So the best part you can actually do is that if you're doing any business card mental system effects, it will not take a lot of space, because it's just a simple anagram with a piece of paper. So the best part you can actually do is that you can start with the effects like this. Like, I want you to think of the word cat or dog, but the best part, you can actually tell them to pick either a dog or a cat, because if you do that, you can actually have the dog anagram and the cat anagram on the same side facing you. If they mention cat, then you have the cat anagram. If they mention dog, you can just like fuss around and play with the business cards and place the dog anagram in front of you facing them. But in most cases, you can just use the cat anagram if you want to. It's no biggie. But to start with, you can actually start with the whole conversation to let them think of an animal and do all the build up. Like, imagine they were thinking of cat. I want you to think of take one letter out of that animal, and I want you to think of an animal that starts with that letter. So in that case, they're going to be thinking of T. With the first the animal that they could be thinking of could be a tiger. Pretty much it. Right. So once they've done that, you can actually take one business card, or well, pretty much you're just taking one business card, a blank one, and having let me just turn this around. So imagine this is your anagram, and this is just a blank piece of paper. You can actually have this. So at this right moment, you can actually have the anagram facing you without the spectator ever knowing. You can have the piece of paper on top of your anagram like this. And with a pen or a pencil, it could be anything. You can actually say the questions with what I told you of how the anagram is, which is the repeat principle, the one letter principle, or etc. You can just start doing this, and based on that, you can start following what principles you should do. The best part, you can actually do this. It's quite easy. You can have the anagram in front of you, and the first thing you should do, like always, is to know how many letters this animal has. So once you already know how many letters this animal has, especially for the 6-letter animal or the 7, you can just try to like, hold on, let me just write down something, because I'm quite sure what animal you were thinking of. And at this right moment, you're briefly looking, well, on the anagram you're trying to do, briefly looking on here on the amount of numbers, and if you see the number, you can instantly see the process of what you should do. So imagine they were thinking of the 7-letter word, they would be thinking either a chicken or a cheetah. And once you see that, and just pretending writing something out, you can clearly see what principle you should do, which is the 1-letter principle. So in that case, you can just pretend to write something, and in this right moment, you can actually use your nail to create the sound that you're pretending to write something. It mostly works more on towards pens or pencils, not a Sharpie, because it's quite not many people. No, well, you can actually use a Sharpie, but not many people tend to hear Sharpies kind of like a pencil. But it's up to you. But once you already have seen what principle you should do, you can just like, you know what? Let me just try to take another business card and try my best what to do. So in this part, once you've seen your anagram and know what principle you should do and pretend to write, you can just tell them that, you know what, I did a mistake. And you can just pretend to erase or just scribble on your answer and just ditch it. And take one other business card and place it on top of your anagram. And now at this right moment, you already know what type of principle you should do. So if you were doing the 7-letter word with the chicken and the cheetah, you can actually do this. You can actually use the 1-letter principle, because you already seen this beforehand on your anagram. So just for a rundown, I want you to think of the amount of letters that your animal has. Oh wait, does this animal has 7 letters? Am I right? Yes. Oof. Okay. So at this right moment, I'm looking through my anagram, looking at what principle I should do, and you can just pretend to scribble or erase or just ditch your answer and take one business card and place it on top of it. And now you can start doing the actual principle, like quite like this, like, you know what? Is there an eye on this animal? Am I right? And if they say yes, chicken. If no, cheetah, or etc. It's going to be working on every single principle if you want to. But if you already have the animal that they're thinking of, you can just start writing the actual animal, and you can just like fold it up, or you can just basically place their hand like this and place the actual answer on here on top of it, so they can actually cover what you wrote. Or you can actually rebuild it on different ways if you want to. But that's a good excuse to actually use billets to, or use a cheat sheet. Like a cheat sheet to know what principle you should do instead of memorizing the whole concept. But I think it's better to, if you guys don't want to memorize the whole pattern of how the animals are placed, you can actually just write down the whole thing up, put the numbers, everything up, And the only thing you should know, or pretty much have to study, are the principles of the sequences of what you should do. You can actually just make mini notes or use a different color pen, mark it to note the exact situation you should do the principles. And at that right moment, when you see it, you can instantly identify it in 1 second. Take a different business card, place it in front of you or facing you, write down their actual animal, and once you got that, you're good to go. And the best part is you can instantly repeat the same effect over and over again. But I do not tend to repeat it because in most cases, like, not people will not catch it, but it gets a little bit more frustrating to repeat the same effect over and over again on many people. So, but if you want to, you can actually perform this effect with 3 people, not 5, because if you're doing this with 5 people, it's a lot. It's so much to do because it requires you to instantly focus on one person, then the other, and focus on a different person, and you have to focus on the other. So I think it's better to do it with 3 people because it's quite like a small number. But if you want to take the risk and actually do this with 5 people, you can do it. But it's up to you. So that's one way you can actually just have the cheat sheet on the business card and just try to pretend to write and look through your anagram and know what you should do, and take one regular business card, place it facing you, and now you can just write down the actual animal that you're thinking of. So that's one thing. So I'll briefly explain of how you can actually force the cat and the dog. I mostly do not use these, but if you guys don't want to use the script, or just tell them to think of this animal and do this like that, that's fine. But you can actually use a force to force the cat and dog without you even knowing, because this is quite like a it's not necessary to do it, but if you guys want to, you can do it. But most cases, I would just instantly just tell them to think of a cat like that, because there's no reason to force an animal from, like, because basically the forcing is with the business cards, and you force it, and then suddenly they see the animal, and then later on they're going to be building a different animal. So it has no reason to let forcing cat or dog on them, then later on you're going to be thinking of a different animal. So it doesn't make sense. So this is only using a force. If you guys want to, I will not use it, but if you guys want to use it, you can use it. So here it is. So this is a way of how you can actually force a cat or dog, but using billets. But for now, we're going to be using forcing cat. But you can actually force dog if you want to. Doesn't really matter. It's not going to make a difference, but if you guys want to use this. So to start with, imagine we have the letter cat, and to able to do this force, the reason why I don't do it because it requires you to actually take every single business card that you have and write down many different type of animals like cat, turtle, fox, shark, or etc. The reason why I don't do this because it takes a lot of work to write down a bunch of animals, and then later on you're going to force one animal, and then later on you're going to be letting them to build an animal that they should think of. So this is the reason why I do not do this force enough. But if you guys want to use it, you can use it. So to start with, you have the word cat or dog, and a bunch of these will be different type of animals with it. If you want, you can actually make drawings. If you're a birthday party magician, if you perform this with kids, you can actually use this. But I do not think that kids will have the how do I say this, the time, that's what I mean, the time to actually do the whole process of the anagram, because it's more towards the teens or the adults thing. But it's quite, if you guys know what I mean. But you can actually use drawings to represent what type of animal they're going to be thinking of. So imagine we're going to be forcing the word cat. So in many cases, you can actually, because you're using a bunch of business cards, you can actually force the cat using a classic force if you want to. It's not my job to teach you the classic force, because there are many projects out there that teach you more in depth about the classic force in many cases. But you can actually use many force if you want to. If you have the rift force, the X or the cross force, if you guys use that. But in many cases, I will use the classic force, or I will use if I was using business cards, I will use a different type of force, but that's for a different type of project later on. But for now, we're going to be using the classic force for this one. So imagine you have the word cat on top of the business cards, and try to cut the deck in half. And for the basic of the classic force, you would just have a pinky break on the middle of those stack cards. And basically the classic force is quite more like a risk force, because not many people have succeeded to do a classic force, because if you're doing this to the audiences, there's always a high chance that the spectator will be taking the wrong card, or picking a card from the top. If you say these type of words like take any card, which is a good excuse that they're going to take any type of card from the bottom, from the top, not even from the middle. But in that case, this is the only type of script I actually use to point out one card instead of taking any card. So there are many projects out there with the classic force. I guarantee you to search or do your own research to actually check many forces out there. There are many type of forces out there that I do not know, but I think they are way better than this. But still, it's your complete freedom to actually use this force. So you have the word cat on top of the pack. Cut the deck in half and take your pinky break on here on the middle. And at this right moment, you can tell the spectator to please touch one card. Do not take any card. Do not. The reason why I do not say take any card is because they have the full freedom to take any playing card instead of the card that they should take. But the reason why I say point to one card, most cases, spectators will do this. And once they do this, and once you're doing the spread thingy, you have the complete freedom that once their finger can get near to the pack, near to one card, it's your full freedom to actually take that card and not place it on their finger, but be closer to their finger, kind of like this. Once they're about to touch it by themselves, instead of you touching like this, instead of forcing it on their finger, just let their finger guide, and then later on you can just let the card moving. Like imagine if their finger are here, do not do this. Do not force the cards on their finger. Try to let their finger land on what you predict is going to be landing. And at this right moment, once you're moving the cards, try to move it towards where they're going to be touching it, instead of you pushing it like that. So once you do that, that's how you can be forcing cat. Many parts you can actually use this force on playing cards. If you have playing cards, you can actually just take your playing cards and write down the words cat, dog, or etc. But it's up to you. There are playing cards, like bicycle playing cards on both sides, that you can actually write down any type of thing you want to. I guarantee you to use those, because they're quite easy to fan out, because it's just like a regular deck of playing cards but blank, and it's quite easy to force on those cards than using regular card stock of business cards, because they're a little bit rough. But it's up to you if you guys want to use these. The other force, I do not use this force more often, but I think I will, because many people do not tend to catch this type of force. And the force is quite easy. It's using the cross or X cross force or etc. What's it called? But imagine you have the word cat on it, place it on top, and you will have the spectator to do this. You will have the spectre to cut the deck like this in half and place it on the table like this. And then later on, because the force is right here, because they cut the deck right here on the table, and the force card is right here. Let me just do it a little bit more easier. They cut the deck like this, and the force card is right here. And then later on, you can place this pack, which is the bottom part of the pack, on top of the deck, but crisscross force. Like that. And I mostly do this at the moment where their eyes are towards me instead of looking through the deck, because that's the great part where you can actually use misdirection. But it's your decision if you guys want to use this force or not. I've not forced anyone to use this force, but it's up to you. So all you have to do is cut the deck, or have them to cut the deck, place this on the table, and then later on, with using verbal or communication, you can just actually take this pack and place it on top of here and make it a crisscross force. And at this right moment, when you're doing this crisscross force, I think that's the name of this force. I think that was, but at this right moment, when you do the crisscross force, many people tend to think that their card is going to be this one, because if you're doing a cut, if you're selecting the card from the pack by cutting it, many people tend to think that if you're placing this card from here, your cards could be from here. It's quite unbelievable of how this force actually works, but people do not tend to catch it, which is quite mind-blowing. But all you have to do is have them cut the deck, take this pack, place it crisscross force, and at this later on, you can just tell them like, all right, just take this card and memorize it. Do not show it to me. And it's gonna be the word cat. And that's quite it. That's how the crisscross force really is. You can use any forces that you know to apply with this to be able to force the word cat on it. But it's up to you if you guys want to use it. I will not use it for my own, but because I mostly use it with verbal, I would just tell them to think of a cat or something like that, because it's more natural than bringing a force that's unnecessary for this effect. So it's up to you if you guys want to use the force in pretty much many type of things. If you guys want to use it, if you guys have the freedom for it. But that's quite it. So I'm gonna break down of the closing of this effect for now. But I hope that you really gather as much information about how this effect is, because it's quite tedious to learn more about the anagram and the steps that you should do. Because at the first place, when you at the first part where you're going to be seeing the PDF in the first time, it will look intense of how you see it. It's a lot of work going on, but the more if you take your time or several days to learn each step of the principles, the easier it's going to get for you. So this is not an effect that will take how I say it, I think 5 minutes to learn. But if you're a fast learner to do this, or if you have experience with Proculus effects, then I think it's going to be familiar with you to do this effect quicker. But so that's quite it for now. So this is just forcing a cat or dog using some business cards. And also it's your complete freedom to actually use the anagram as a cheat sheet to be able to do, or to be able to look at the anagram, look at it, and just take a blank business card and write down the animal if you did everything enough. So yeah. So that will be it for Animalistic. So I really hope you understand the basics and the whole purpose of how each principle works. And also I hope you actually take the full study and time to actually learn this full principle, because of course, like I said before, it's going to be a lot going on, but the more you study it and the more you perform it, because this type of effect does requires a lot of confidence to perform it to people, and not many people have the time to actually do this type of effect. But if you know anyone who has the time for you to actually perform this effect with someone and do this effect, many people will be mind blown by this effect. But I hope you really understand the whole concept of why the anagram works, the whole principles and everything else. And if you guys want to, you can actually just customize this effect if you want to. This is not very hard to customize this. If you guys learn it, if you guys have a different type of language, if you guys speak Spanish, French, or etc., you guys actually can just customize or study the whole thing from the anagram that I provide with you, and you can try to like translate some of the words of the animals, which is tiger, etc., to your own preferred language, and you can translate them. And the best part is that you can actually see what parts of that animal has unique, which are the letters, which is I. So imagine if tiger and shark, or except, well, shark is not an anagram, but imagine tiger and camel, and you know that tiger has an I, but camel doesn't. You can actually use simple words like that and modify it if you guys want to use your own language with this type of anagram. And also, it's your complete freedom to actually reveal these type of animals if you want to. You can actually use how do I say this, a Swami gimmick. You can just have a business card and just do what you should do with the Swami gimmick to perform it. I will not do that, but if you guys know more about the Swami gimmick, you can actually do that. If you guys have a card to envelope, or no, card to wallet, you can actually just secretly write down your information, and actually it will be on your wallet somewhere else, and then suddenly you can will be predicting your the animal from your wallet, or etc. So you pretty much have the freedom to actually put this effect on many type of mentalism effects that you own. So I hope you like this project, and if you guys take the time and everything else, everything's gonna be fine. But of course, like many of these properties effect will take time and a lot of study and a lot of risk to perform these. But the more time you take, the easier it's gonna be. Easier as long as you practice and practice and practice. It's gonna be way more easier for you. So I hope you enjoyed this project, and I will see you next time.